Recently I was thinking back upon my nothing, mistake-ridden non-event of a life, and I realised that I haven't achieved anything. I haven't achieved anything in my life yet. But what makes my story interesting is that it doesn't matter to me anymore. Whatever happens from here, I've already conquered and understood the biggest hurdle of my life or your life. It's our minds. Sure, this video would be more interesting if I were already famous giving out this advice, but in a way, I think that's the point. It doesn't matter so much the outcome so much as the process. Success isn't some abstract future concept. It's literally in every moment. I mean, we all want a good outcome, but to get there, we need to focus on the now moment. I say I haven't achieved that much in my life, but actually what I've achieved is pretty significant. It's just that it sits a little bit further under the hood. I couldn't tell you anything that happened in 2018. Not because it was a terrible year, but because it was hollow. It's a black hole. In the nicest way put, that's what the decade between 2009 and the pandemic became. A long, barren drift. Life had been feeling subpar for so long by this point, and would carry on being so, that this is how I viewed the new normal, and I felt powerless to stop it. A decade earlier in 2008, I got my first laptop, and with it, a new brain. This was the golden age of learning. Any question, any obsession could be chased for hours on a screen. Does the Loch Ness Monster exist? Could we resurrect Kurt Cobain or John Lennon? What sits at the boundary of the universe? What's the highest number anyone's ever imagined? The imagination was limitless. Of course, it would take another 17 years before we'd get to what I would call the singularity. But even in 2008, I could tell something was shifting within me. I'd learned far more that year from the laptop than I ever had in high school. I had the audacity to think this was intelligence, but really it was just the burgeoning. This was the potential. I think of Sourav Ganguly. Commentators always said that he had a good eye, but he wore glasses, so that always struck me. See, a good eye isn't the eyeball. It's perception, it's timing, it's instinct. It's the ability to read the game. And that's what I had in 2008. A nascent way of seeing patterns, even if I didn't really fully know how to act on them yet. My 2010s was a story of a man without direction. I moved to Townsville in 2009 and my world quietly fell apart from there. I lived in the sticks from 2009 till about 2016, then slowly drifted closer to the city between 2017 and 2025. I worked full-time in produce at Woolworths from 2010 to 2020, and you can see these massive lengths of time just slowly building up. God. 3 managers, each worse than the last. Life felt stagnant. I was socially awkward, anxious, and crucially, I missed the thing that mattered the most to me, which was my winters. I missed wearing jackets. I thought Townsville would be cooler than Broken Hill because the summer temperatures were lower. God, I was an idiot. Didn't do any research. I swapped dry heat for humid heat, and with it I lost the winters that I loved. This isn't the story of a cult figure like Basquiat or Joan of Arc burgeoning. There was no movement to be part of. No matches on Tinder. No revolution. And nostalgia reigned supreme. Fuck! Looking back, it felt like humanity's slow crawl from ancient ruins to the Renaissance. 1,000 years compressed into my own life. I can't fully explain where I found the will to keep going. I was blind, ignorant, depressed, and stubbornly refused to probe why I felt stuck. But eventually I did. And that's where this revolution begins. It all started with the laptop in the dying days of Broken Hill. This was the last stages of the classic era of my life. The classic era is this pre-grown up period. Still living at home, an adult with a full-time job, but naive to the real world. In 2008, one might imagine it like the peak of Rome. There's intelligence there, sure. The scaffolding of future societies are here, but it's primitive. There's no printing press, no compasses, there's not even electricity. That was me in '08. There's a form of pre-wisdom intelligence there, but you've got to get through the Middle Ages yet. Human life, despite being the most intelligent species on the planet, hasn't really had it good until modern history. And even then, have a look at the world. It's still not that great. Let me tell you a story. I was never that good at high school. English I was alright at, but the other subjects I was meh at. Maybe with the exception of drama, naturally. Science was not very strong, mainly because they were talking about things that I wouldn't get interested in until much later, and of course the education system never really teaches it in that interesting of a way. And in any case, I think I was more interested in philosophy. But of course this is 1999, and I'm still a kid. Now here's the thing, I got in trouble one night. I was banished to my room, and I had to stay there. I had nothing to do but study. And that's what I did. I studied. I went through everything. I went through the terms papers, and I understood it on a molecular level. Well, maybe not quite, but the test the next day, I blitzed out of the park. I got 40.5 out of 45. It was astonishing. And the stuff that I didn't get were the things that I wasn't as 100% sure on the night before, because I didn't have all that much time to do it. But that story has always stuck with me because, well, it kind of means that we have this ability in ourselves to do anything. You're a human, for God's sake. Don't underestimate how good you are. I've always had a relentlessly imaginative mind that just doesn't like to stop thinking. I like learning. Evolution is such a big thing to me. And that's what happened to me. I evolved. I got better. Given enough time, things eventually make sense to you. You've got an inquisitive mind. It begins to make sense. Now, things did take a long time to click together. And in the early era of like 2008, before I left for Broken Hill, it was really just sort of the origins of it all. But there was something there. Anyway, over a decade and a half later, I finally hit this sort of moment of understanding everything. Or I call it like the low-level understanding of everything. It's like I've reached black belt status. Or perhaps not quite. Perhaps I'm red belt black tip and I just have to keep practicing until I actually get to the black belt. Because I'm not quite there in the way that I live my life. But I can see what needs to be done. And so that's why I've called just recently hitting the singularity.
Well, the essence of the singularity is that we're going to capture the most powerful form of intelligence we know about, which is human brain.
We become what we think about most of the time. And that's the strangest secret.
Upon moving to Townsville in 2009, it felt particularly clever to bash on religion. This was truly my Middle Ages. I bought Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, and this stuff read like pure correctness to me. Every line was like a mic drop on why religion was wrong and ridiculous, and this period of my life makes me proper cringe. But that's the origins of critical thinking shining through. It would evolve from there. For me, it comes a lot easier because I have this insatiable curiosity. It starts at religion, but then it evolves into social issues, and then to day-to-day problems. All it takes is time. You spend your days in the microscopic and it feels of the moment, but given enough time, you take a step or two back, and the canvas reveals that you're far greater and more knowledgeable than you ever thought you were. The key, though, is critical thinking. That plus time. And in my case, a lot of time. But the crucial thing is, I got there. tangent. Knowing what type of thinker I am, I have this anecdote. I recall an incident once where I went to a game of cricket in Townsville because it was an international match, which was rare for a city of this size. I recall distinctly telling my mate Milno how Kumar Sangakkara, who was batting at the time, had 11 Test double centuries, and I'd hoped he would retire before he overtook Don Bradman's record of 12. I was speaking a little louder than I should, that a private conversation would dictate, because, I've always wanted to sound a little bit important. I wanted the older bloke sitting behind me to know I knew my cricket as well. I was talking about the bigger issues. A moment later, the blokes behind us clapped as Sangakkara hustled for a really well-run 2 runs. "Great running," one of them said. Even then, I felt this jarring feeling, because it felt like they were talking about the small stuff and I was talking about the bigger picture. But I didn't dwell on it for too long. Of course, it did stick with me. And really, the answer was right there in front of me. I just didn't connect the dots. That's who I really am. A big picture thinking. I love Apple, but I don't care about the computer specs. God. I love the Ford Mustang 1968 Fastback, but I don't like the mechanics of cars. I love photography, but I don't care about the details of aperture. That's what I was really brushing up against that day. But that leads to an even deeper insight. I like the stats of cricket more than I like the game itself. I'm much more comfortable with the poetry and the story of the players and the games than I am the technical side of it all. There's dozens of fielding positions, and while I obviously know a few, there's a lot I don't know exactly where they are. And I don't care.
Well, what can I say? It's different.
In fact, it brings up a memory in 2003 of my best friend Milno asking me to show him certain shots to another friend who was just curious about cricket. And I felt this complete nervousness as the shots I played didn't really match what he was saying. I really didn't know the game that well. And this is what I mean by things just sticking with me. Why do I remember that random moment from 2003? I cannot be completely sure, but I feel like that's my gut telling me there's something important about this moment. There is something in this moment that you need to remember.